It's Sunday, July 19th, 2020. This is All About Your Benjamins and your weekly mixtape and week in review video. Hope you guys have had a great week. We actually got to get away as a family up to Michigan for a few days, spent some time at a VRBO house, went to the lake, and it was extremely relaxing. I think the whole COVID life right now actually made our vacation a little bit better because we didn't have to worry about getting ready to go to dinner. We just went to the beach, kept our different distance from people, came back home. They had a nice patio with a TV and a fan and some couches. We'd order out every night, bring the food back. Didn't have to worry about showering or rushing to get to dinner, and just had a very relaxing time. So hopefully, whether you're able to get away or whatever it might be, you're finding some time to be able to spend with your family and enjoy each other as COVID life continues on and before school gets back into the situation. I don't know what your situation is where you are. We found out this week that the beginning of school is going to be e-learning. So we're going back on normal start date, but we're going to be e-learning at least through Labor Day. So in Indiana, we start school super early. I know most schools, especially out east, don't go back to school until after Labor Day. But from, I think, maybe the 6th or 7th of August on through Labor Day, we're going to be doing e-learning. So my wife and I, we are scrambling about figuring out how do we manage our businesses and having e-learning with the kids and then have Silas at home as well. And by no means are we the only families talking about this, but I think this is going to be a very stressful conversation for many families because more and more people are back to work, getting back to more of a normal work-life schedule, and now all of a sudden we're going to have to be looking at e-learning and how do we balance that. We've all gotten comfortable working from home, but that was only supposed to be a short-term fix. By now we're supposed to be back to work. If you can't send your kids to school, what are you going to be doing? So we're not out of the woods yet, obviously, as everybody knows, but I think this is another stressor that's just going to add to the frustration of everything that's going on right now. And it's kind of weird that if you step back and you look at life, we went to dinner last night, had a date night, you look around and it doesn't really look like there's a big pandemic going on, other than you see some people walking around with masks, you bring your mask in, you sit down, you take them off. But then as you sit back and look, it looks like life might be a little bit back to normal. And then you look at some of the headlines we're going to look at today, and we're going to see that obviously there's a long way to go and there are certain people who are being impacted more than others. So with that, let's get to the headlines that may or may not be impacting your financial plan and your portfolio. And the first few are going to be centered around the economy. We're going to start off with some good news because it leads into some of the other things and some, not concerns, but things I want us to think about and just be ready to discuss. In June, retail sales rose 7.5%, and a lot of pent-up demand for autos and furniture and different things that people went out and bought big items. But if you think about it, pent-up demand, we saw this last month as well, so not a huge surprise there. But will this be able to continue in two fronts? Will people be able to continue to do this? Because as we're going to see in a moment, some of the unemployment benefits are going to be going away this month that may have helped spur this. I don't have the data in front of me, and I'm not a researcher, but I've got to believe that the extra $600 a week that some people are getting, that the government enacted for the COVID stimulus, helped out this retail. When you take that away here this month, what is that going to do to retail? If businesses start closing again, we're seeing resurgence of COVID. We're seeing states step back, putting in new mandates. Will that change things as well? So it's good to see retail going up. That makes me think that some of the stimulus that was done was a positive. It helps people go out and continue to spend, put money into the economy. But we'll have to continue to see what happens. But if unemployment was the next topic, if this continues where it's at or continues to rise or begins to rise again, we may see retail sales go down again in the future. So it's a good sign now. We'll have to see what happens next month with some of the changes that are coming here shortly. The next few articles in the Week in Review articles all center around unemployment. So the jobs recovery is beginning to slow down. We had that huge unemployment number and it really dropped down. One of the articles on here, you can see that chart, but it's kind of plateaued out. So another 1.3 million people claimed unemployment benefits this month. That is the same as last month. So not a lot of change, or I guess last week. Not a lot of change from the last report. So we're not seeing the continued improvement with unemployment. We'll have to see if that continues or not, but it's just something to pay attention to. Again, as we see the resurgence in cases, we see businesses maybe having to shut down or reduce hours. Will that change things? And I mentioned this last week, or will we see that unemployment will begin to go down a little bit more as these extra checks drop off and people realize they have to go back to work if they can to make what they need to make to survive. So maybe there's a little bit of being comfortable with the unemployment benefits that have kept people home. I have not seen a report letting us know what are the available jobs out there. So maybe there aren't the jobs there for the people who need it. I think that might be part of the case, but maybe there are some jobs that could be refilled and people will go back to those when the unemployment benefits drop off. We don't know. I have no prediction, but we'll have to see, and we'll see those numbers here pretty soon. But the unemployment number is better than it was, but it's kind of plateauing out as we see the resurgence of COVID numbers across the country. So we'll continue to watch that, because that's one of the things I think is a big deter from this recovery that we're seeing continuing. Obviously, if people don't go back to work or people get laid off and unemployment begins to go back up again, that's not a good thing for everything that we're concerned about with the economy and the markets and all those things. So that's the area I want to focus on the most. Some information is coming out of the banks. So actually had somebody ask me how safe are the banks right now, thinking back to 2008, 2009, and from everything that we're seeing, stress tests, all these other measures that are out there, the banks appear to be in good shape. This week we had a couple banks come out with earnings, and they disclosed that they set aside a lot of money to cover what they are anticipating upcoming defaults on loans, not paying credit cards. They have a bigger reserve to handle those things in preparation, which is a good thing to think about them preparing ahead, but a bad thing to think about that they are anticipating that things are going to get worse for them, which would make us think that things are worse for you and I. If you can't make your debt payments, that's probably because you're not working, the unemployment income went away, and then that goes to the banks. So from what they're preparing, they're not seeing the average American out of the tough times yet. Hopefully they get it wrong. They've got this extra cash and they can go do good things with it. But that is one of the things that I thought was interesting, is that the banks are preparing for defaults on loans and loans not being paid. One of the banks said it's not a normal recession, that the recessionary, I believe it was JP Morgan's Jamie Dimon, said that this is not a normal recession, that the recession part is actually going to come in the future where we actually feel it and experience it. I think that that's a little removed. There are people who are experiencing it today, but I think he's saying, back to my comment earlier, if you look around, you would not guess, at least where we live, and it's fortunate to be able to say that, if you look around, you wouldn't feel the pain that some other people are facing. So that disconnect we've talked about in the past between the wealth gap and class is continuing to grow. So the banks are preparing themselves. They're not optimistic with where things look in the near term, so we'll have to see how that plays out. All right, so two things not regarding the economy and all that, because it seems like I'm negative. I'm not, just looking at what's out there and the things that are out there that could cause us to have to go through another rough time like the beginning of the year. Hopefully it doesn't happen. No one really knows. That's why we kind of talk through these things. We plan for them. We understand what's going on. That way, if they play out, we understood what it was. We know it's going to be a short-term thing, and there will be a fix that will come through. So the last two, nothing to do with the economy. The first one is with Twitter. Everybody knows that I love being on Twitter and engaging with people, but there was a hack over the week, and all of the blue checks, so the blue check people are the verified people, the famous people with all the followers, they actually got locked out. But the accounts that were hacked were big name people, and the hackers, from what we could initially tell, were just doing a Bitcoin scam, which the skeptic in me just says, there's no way, if you get access to some of the most powerful people in the world, are you sending people requests for Bitcoin? I also bring this up for, don't fall for these scams. People fall for them all the time, whether it's email, phone calls, Twitter now. Very rarely are people going to solicit money to give you more money back in the future. That's not how life works, yet we fall for these things. And I think in this situation, seeing a famous person doing it maybe makes you think it's a little bit more safe. But be aware of the scams. I saw a scam of a scam so there was the hack, people were scheming for Bitcoin, and then I saw somebody receive a message of somebody saying that they were scammed through the scam and that they needed some help. So the scam of the scam is now going on. So be careful with all that. But it was just interesting to see that Twitter, social media is not safe. So Twitter was hacked. They got it all fixed, I believe. All the blue check marks are back. But just thought that was kind of an interesting topic, given that Twitter is a part of my daily use for news and engaging with people. And finally, some good news. If you own a home and you are at a higher interest rate, hopefully by now you've refinanced, but 30-year mortgage rates this week dipped below 3%. So depending on where you're at, how long you're going to stay in your house, it may be worth looking at refinancing with rates so low. One comment I'll throw out there is, I have grown to understand and respect the fact that mortgage debt, paying off a home, is very much a personal decision more so than a finance decision. Morgan Housel came to the AGC, the group of advisors that I co-founded, and said that personal finance is more personal. And then I forget who the person is, that's actually their quote, but I love that quote. So even though mortgage rates are below 3%, maybe refinancing out for another 30 years does not fit your personal preference, and your financial situation allows you to not have to do that. It doesn't mean you necessarily need to go run out and do that, but if you're looking for room in the budget and you have a house and you're 3.5 or more on your mortgage, it might be worth looking at refinancing to see, does it make sense. Things to take into consideration: how long are you going to stay in the house? What are the closing costs? How long will it take you to make back that closing cost expense versus the money you're going to save on your monthly payment? Those are some real quick things. If you're only going to stay in the house for a few years, it's a few $1,000s to close, then you may not want to refinance because you may not recoup the money and it may not be worth in that short term. But if you're going to be in the house for the long term and you are an optimistic long-term investor, you might be better off reconsidering having money borrowed at less than 3%, thinking you can do more with your money elsewhere, or your budget may just need the extra room. So a lot to go into. It's not always a no-brainer, and then you have your personal preferences to balance in there as well. But definitely something to know about, definitely something to be looking into. So go check your mortgage rate, talk to a lender, see if it makes sense, and maybe you'll be some room in your budget. All right, that's it. I got long-winded this week. I always do that. I apologize, but a lot of things I wanted to hit on. So I hope you had a great week. Be sure to check out the mixtape. Link is below in YouTube. If you're watching this on the blog, obviously just scroll down and you're going to see everything there. Some great articles this week. As always, thanks for watching. If you haven't already, give us a subscribe. Leave some comments in the comment section. We'd love to have some dialogue there as well. But thanks for watching, and we will see you all in the next episode.